2. Today we practice the beautiful art of radical reimagination. And we ask ourselves, what if? I like cakes too. It's a good room, a room of cake-loving people. And we have, to kick us off, I'm slightly nervous actually. It's quite funny. I haven't been nervous to introduce someone for a while, but a very dear brother who I've actually never met, neither properly in the Zoom room or in person, but who has touched my life and the way I perceive the world in a really very profound way. I feel like he needs no introduction more than he is a father, a son, a husband, and a human being who reminds me that I am deeply entangled with the rest of the world. So, Bayo, I'll hand over to you. And thank you for making time to be with us today.
It is my pleasure, sister. Thank you so much for having me, and I greet everyone here. I hear some people are having cake. It's not fair. Like, if you're gonna have cake, then we need to get talking. Please share some. Happy birthday to, is it Hamed? Yeah, happy birthday, Hamed. Please send a piece to some of us who are sweet tooth loving cake eaters. I am grateful to be here. And I'm speaking from Chennai, which is where I make my home most of the time with my family. My wife is from Chennai. My children are beige, so we don't exactly know how to define them. There's something between Nigerian and Indian. And I was excited about this conversation and invitation because of Isla and
Excuse me, I got updated.
And the possibility of coming to share here and to speak with us. And so I felt I would do I think I was muted, right? Can I go ahead? Okay. I thought I would do a story and then just address some of the things that activates young people in the world today. Some of the things that inspire us and energize us and keep us haunted at night. So I know that this is not a participatory thing, but with a show of hands, how many of us would like to change the world? I know it's a very, very popular trope. Let me just see your hands if you like to change the world. There you go. Hey, Ahmed. Ahmed, it's looking good. Chris, hands up. Everyone. Could you tell me what that looks like? What would it take to change the world, and what do we actually mean by that? This is rhetorical, a largely rhetorical question, but if you can put it in the chat. Is the chat available for people to type in? Okay, so just put it in there, what it means for you to change the world. What does it mean to change the world? In a single sentence, a phrase, an idea, a concept. Yes, I hear that. First change ourselves. We can do it. Living and being together in new ways. Change your mindset with 2 T's. So he's really keen on that mindset. Being aligned. Change starts with me, create a small. Okay, so these are expected. It starts with me. Exactly. These are very expected. If you browse and sail through the ether through the internet, you will come, it's very hard, it's very difficult to sail through the internet and not alight upon some meme that says something like maybe what Gandhi supposedly said, that change yourself to change the world, right? That maybe Gandhi had Twitter, and he said it using Twitter, that if you want to change the world, you have to change yourself. Now, what I want to address is this. Most of these ideas about our philosophies of change come from a very, very resilient and sticky idea. The idea is that humans are separate from the world, right? The idea is that we are independent, that humans are a special kind of quality. They have a special kind of quality. They're separate from tables and chairs and phones and animals. In fact, recently, a dictionary, there's a campaign in the UK, they reached out to me, and they're activists. They're trying to challenge the definition of nature in the Oxford Dictionary. And if you pull that out yourself, the Oxford something dictionary, it has the definition of nature as, the sum of animals and plants and geological effects outside of humans. Outside of humans. So there's a very, very strong notion spilling through popular thought, our education, and our cultural spaces, that what it means to be human is to be separate from the world. We are not of the world. We are separate from it. Thinking that way has consequences, though. And some of those unexamined consequences is that we can change the world unilaterally, that all we need to do is get an education, come up with the right philosophy, and then enact change upon the world. The presumption here is that the world is outside of us, and we are only acting upon it because the goal is to master it. The world is just there to be described, explained, predicted, and controlled. But what if the world has hidden qualities? What if the world is also intelligent? What if the world can also enact change? What if whales also have their own community? What if bacteria can disturb economies, right? Everyone that's here on this call, if you can, and if your camera is on, it doesn't matter if it isn't, please just put your hands on your face. Don't be creepy and weird about it. Just put your hands on your face and touch your face like you're in a skin cream ad and you're lovingly touching your face. Here, just like Isla is doing it. Bosco is like rubbing it really hard. I'm not exactly sure that's how to do it, right? But right now, I like to share this with people. It's comedic, but it's also quite striking that on your face are living creatures, tiny creatures. They're called the cousins of spiders. The name for them is demodex. And they live in the pores of your skin. They live in the holes in your face. They live there. They die there. They have families there. They go to school there. They have jobs there. They have land acknowledgement acts there. The question then is, who owns your face? I like to ask, who owns your face? It might seem like, oh, that's a preposterous question. We know that we're constantly interacting with other things around us, but that's not quite the point here. The point is the human is a relationship. We are not separate or separable from the world around us. And sometimes we like to presume that all we need to do is just act upon the world, when it is the case that sometimes when we act upon the world, we only reinforce its problems and its challenges. Right. So I have a theory called post-activism. This isn't the time to stretch that out. I just wanted a mild conversation with you. And the central tenet of post-activism is that sometimes the way we address the problem is the problem. The way we address the crisis is the crisis. I'll give you one example. In Denmark, I love how glitches and sounds just flow in. That's part of what it means to be here and to be human. In Denmark, a couple of years ago, I read it in their dailies, or I read it somewhere. I think I was on a plane, and I was in Europe somewhere, and I read that a certain municipality in Denmark had tried to address debris and plastic on its beaches, to clear the beach and to make them clean and nice and presentable. Climate activism and all that, climate justice. So what they did was that they took tractors and they spent about $180,000 equivalent. And they took tractors and they went to those beaches and they cleared the beaches, debris, seaweed, plastic, and they carried this heap of stuff, right? And they threw it right back into the ocean. Right back into the ocean. And so the papers were filled with headlines like, "Stupid. That is preposterously stupid. How could you do that?" But my point here is that that is not an isolated event. We are constantly going around in circles as a species because we believe ourselves to be outside of the patterns and algorithms and hidden projects of the world. But it's very difficult to realize and to notice and to stay with the fact that it is often the case that in our attempts to fix a problem, the problem only gets more intelligent. And then we're back to square one. I often travel to the United States. Not often, that's a horribly mangled understatement. I visit the United States almost every second. And I have this private practice of sitting by in airports and watching anxious, frantic Americans look for places to dispose their Starbucks cups, because of recycling. So they run around the airport and I'm just looking. It's my ethnographic studies hidden, and I chuckle to myself because they want to dispose it in the properly labeled trash can, right? Something I didn't grow up with in Lagos, right? In fact, what I grew up with in Lagos is mountains of trash. Anybody from Lagos here, if you know Isolo, there's a place near Ejigbo where there's a huge mountain. I don't know if it's been cleared, but growing up and going to school, it was like our playground, this huge mountain of dirt that never disappeared. Switzerland has those idyllic mountains. We have trash mountains. And those trash mountains were populated with products that had the recycling symbol on them. In fact, it was my first introduction to recycling in an ironic way, right? What many people may not realize is that 97 or 93% of recyclable products are not taken to some green emerald city and made into green tote bags or some ecologically friendly products. No, they're taken to Gambia, they're deposited in India, they're in Vietnam, they're in Thailand, they're thrown, to the global south. But even when I tell people these, they're still committed to certain performances of righteousness. And that's because, in the words of my dear friend, a professor in Canada, Vanessa, we are part of dopaminergic networks. If the word is new to you, dopamine is something secreted in your brain that is associated popularly with pleasure. So people associate dopamine with the pleasure principle. right? It reinforces actions. So even though we have data that suggests that more and more recycling doesn't actually seem to be ridding the world of its climate concerns, in fact, it's exacerbating it. We're still part and parcel of a cycle of reactivity. So post-activism is really about post-human responsibility. How do we act when we know that sometimes acting gets in the way of what we're trying to see? How do we speak truth to power when sometimes speaking truth to power increases our incarceration within surveillance nation states? How do we travel when the road is haunted by plantation dogs seeking to drag us back into the labor of oppression? So the question here that I want to leave you with, I come with no answers, and there's no time to go deeper, except to haunt you and to destabilize your confidence just a little bit. That's what tricksters do, to destabilize the confident gait with which you act or see the world as merely passive, a passive thing, open and, waiting for your immaculate salvific agency. What we want to do is to sit and slow down. Yoruba elders say, and I paraphrase it and put it in my own way, that the times are urgent, let us slow down. Maybe I'll end with this. There's a beautiful entomological phenomenon. This has to do with ants. How many of you have seen this? Ants going around in circles, just going around in circles. Valentina, you've seen this? You have? Okay. Anna, Sakshi has seen it. Hamed doesn't know what I'm talking about because he's just eating cake. Mohini has seen it. So there's this phenomenon is called the death spiral. It's called the death spiral because, and I'll tell you why it's called the death spiral, but these circular motions of ants just going round and round frantically, as if they're in a trance of some kind, has been noticed. The circles could be as large as a football stadium. They're just going round, and they could be as small as could fit on the surface of a book, right? You can actually go on YouTube now and type in ant death spiral, and you see the ants going around. Why do they do this? One explanation is that ants secrete pheromones. And when they secrete pheromones are like cartographical chemicals. They help ants find their way. And some of the ants that fall into this kind of accident, at least from our own perspective, cannot see. They're blind. So they depend entirely on this chemical that is secreted from their bodies to find their way home. Now, an accident happens and they fall into a circle and they keep on going round. And right there in their midst, they have youth conferences and they have keynote addresses and UNESCO gatherings and motivational speakers that tell the ants, we can do it. Change the world. You can change the world. All you need to do is just look inside yourself and make the change, and you can change the world. But you see, eventually, they keep going round and round and round until they die of exhaustion from going around. The ants just die there in the circle. If that doesn't remind you of our generational failure to address climate events, if that doesn't interest you, with regards to racial and racial dynamics and racialization and injustices around the world, if that doesn't help you see why the nation-state global order seems to be failing to rise to the challenge of oppression in many parts of the world, then I don't know what else I can offer. But yes, we are stuck, people. And we're stuck not because of a want of leadership, not because of a want of education, not because of a want of confidence, but because we are not the only ones on this planet. we have tried to situate our stories of change within a very anthropocentric, the word means human-centered. It is us changing the world. There's a lot of hubris in presuming that we can unilaterally address the world without addressing the things that live alongside us. We are a companion species, you see. And that means we live with tables, we live with algorithms, we live with patterns, we live with ancestral archetypal events. We are immersed and entangled with the pheromonic trails of ants. We live in the firmament of other beings, other lives. So we need a kind of humility today. And I think it's our generation. Well, it's going to be intergenerational. I don't want to sound like a UNESCO motivational speaker. But it has to be an intergenerational act to fall down to earth, to slow down. I'm not talking about doing more yoga. I'm talking about listening. I'm talking about experimenting. I'm talking about thinking alongside the world. What that means is another story. I'll end here. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Wow, wow, wow.
That was within time, right?
That was fantastically within time.
Okay.
It was holding you. Yeah, thank you. I almost wanted to just allow a few moments for the rest of the voices. I feel like I can hear the fan and the clock and all the beings that I share this room with, and to invite all of us to do that. And we have a little bit of time if you'd be happy to take a question.
Yes. That's why I edited myself heavily. Yes, I'm here, sister.
Thank you, brother. Oh, I don't have one. It's not from me.
Okay.
I'm in it. I feel like I'm curious if there's something that needs to be said. Yes, Kenlo, please share.
Okay, thank you so much, Ida. Thank you so much, Doctor. If it's okay to call you that, okay, great. So
Yes.
thank you so much. The speech was quite inspiring, and I just wish to ask this. When can we identify or know when to take action? Or, because as you mentioned, at times us taking action as activists is actually contributing to the problem. So what are some of the measures that we can take in order to know when to take action or to solve a problem in a community? So I just wanted to know that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Well, there are local imperatives. The stories and the narratives I've just offered are not intended to be stultifying in terms of saying agency is impossible. Instead, what's becoming clearer and clearer is that agency is distributed. It seems I was muted. Where did I stop? Where did you stop hearing me?
No,
No, you
actually,
weren't muted
we
at
had,
all. Agency is
yeah.
distributed.
Okay, so I was saying agency is distributed. It is not that we have agency, like we can do things. It's that I wish I could bring up a little bit of Deleuze and assemblage theory, but it's the idea that we act within ecologies. We don't act unilaterally. Obama, the community organizer, who said, "Yes, we can." Did I get his voice right? I think I got something of it. But the Obama that said, "Yes, we can," is starkly different from the Obama of the White House. We behave like our architecture, right? We behave like ecologies. So there isn't a tried and fast and guaranteed way to know what to do, because the world, and this is why one of the skills of our tumultuous, promiscuous, roving and roaming times is to learn how to be in uncertainty. is to learn not knowing, right? Most of our education has been geared towards know this and know that, stick within the disciplinary boundaries of psychology and mathematics. And that's very, very enlightenment. By enlightenment, I mean it comes from the 17th and the 18th centuries and its view and its vision of the world as built around human beings. But now, brother, I'm sure you were affected by the pandemic as much as everyone else was here. What drove us home? Let me ask you a question, just a quick one. I know I'm riffing here and traipsing off, but think of a world leader that could have sent every human being home to their houses. I'm just imagine that as a thought experiment. What world leader on the stage could have come up with a speech and said, everyone, we're going to address climate change now by locking the world down for 1 year or two? I don't think anyone could have had that power. Not Obama, not the Pope, certainly not Trump, you know, no, none of those. And yet a tiny, seemingly infinitesimal critter, stole into our economies from the excess of anthropocentric activity and turned everyone home. So we have to contend with a world that is not ours any longer and has never been. We have to make do with the fact that we are living in a world that exceeds us. And that means that the ways we think about the future, the ways we anticipate agency, the ways we think about education, we have to rethink everything. Yeah, maybe I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Bayo, and thank you for this invitation on day 2, where not only are we rethinking everything, but reimagining it too, and imagining how we might meet the world that we have right now differently. And so we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to slow down. Maybe you do want to do some yoga. I'm not going to police you. And then we're going to come back with a community care session where we're going to really explore that shadow